Hi everybody! I thought I would give you a quick rundown of some terminology that you're going to hear in my upcoming videos to try to help you understand what I'm talking about in those. First of all, I'm going to talk a lot about follicles. These are the tiny little membranes that hold the egg. Every month a woman ovulates one egg and then a sperm meets it in the fallopian tube. The sperm fertilizes the egg. The egg then starts traveling down towards the uterus. In the meantime, the uterus has been getting nice and plump and thick, and the fertilized egg implants into the uterus and becomes a baby. So every month a woman typically produces one, maybe two eggs. Then you get, or you could get, fraternal twins if they both fertilize. So during IVF, our goal is to actually produce like way more follicles than that, and hopefully get way more eggs. So you'll hear that a lot. So I wanted to give you an idea of what those were. Next, I'm going to talk about stim drugs. You're going to hear me talking about stimming or stimulation or hyperstimulation, things like that. Stim drugs are basically hormones that are forcing my body into thinking it needs to produce more eggs. Those are shots. This round of IVF, they were all in my belly, thank goodness, because last time we did IVF, there were some that had to be intermuscular. These are all subcutaneous, which just means that it goes under the skin. Intermuscular has to be injected into a muscle, and those were in my butt. It was not very fun. Yeah, those are the really hard parts of IVF that you hear about all the time. It's not that bad though. So those drugs are called Gonal F and Minipure, and you'll see those in our upcoming videos, but I just wanted to, like I said, give you a rundown since you will hear that a lot. And then I just wanted to really briefly kind of go through the steps of IVF so you have an idea of what we're talking about if you don't know IVF. The first step in our IVF cycle was they put me on birth control. This is a way for them to control the cycle. They make sure that I'm not ovulating. Also, being on birth control helps prevent cyst production. That's also good, but mostly I think it's about the timing. The next step after I finish the birth control is to go into the doctor for a baseline ultrasound, and they look at my ovaries and my uterus to make sure everything's looking good and where they want it to be at that time in the cycle. So everything should be like small and not producing anything. Otherwise that would not be good. We don't want it to be producing an egg yet. So, and then I also have to do blood work so they can see what my estrogen is at that time. The next step is we start stimulating or stimming. And we do that for 9 to 14 days. So that was, for this IVF cycle, 2 shots per day in the belly of Gonal and Minipure. And then we continue monitoring, so I'd have to go in for an ultrasound pretty much every other day. They're looking for the follicles to be about 18 to 20 millimeters in the ovaries before moving on in the process. The next step is adding a ovulation suppressor, because you're creating all these eggs and you don't want to ovulate them. You want them to be there when they go to retrieve them. It's called Cetrotide. They can tell when you need to start it based on your estrogen levels and your ultrasound. Then we kept stimming. We kept going in for ultrasounds. I should say Alan wasn't able to attend all of them. And then we get to a point where our follicles are 18 to 20 millimeters that they want us to trigger. So a trigger shot is basically, so we've been suppressing ovulation. We don't want to ovulate those eggs. Now we do want to ovulate, but not really. It's just you want to start to ovulate so that those eggs come out of the follicle just a little, just a teeny tiny bit, and they are easy to retrieve. So that's another shot. So yes, for anyone keeping track, it is a lot of shots and blood work and a lot of needles. Don't be afraid if you're doing this. It's not that bad, I promise. So you trigger, and then about 36 hours later, they do an egg retrieval. And that is surgery. I had to go into surgery. They put me under, it's localized, no, it's general, it's not general anesthesia. It's localized anesthesia, I think. So basically, I was like lightly sleeping, I guess. You wake up relatively quick. That's the next step, is the egg retrieval. Then you come home, rest. In the meantime, you're creating embryos. Well, you're not creating embryos. The embryologist hopefully is growing you embryos. I'm gonna show you what that kind of looks like. Excuse my rough drawings. Okay, I'm not an artist. I'm just trying to help you visualize it. Okay, so in traditional IVF, they're going to take the egg and they're going to take the sperm and they're going to mix them in a petri dish. They're just going to leave them there and hope that nature will do its thing. And then we have what's called ICSI, where they're going to take an egg, find the very best sperm from the sample, and they're going to suck it up into a needle. And then they're going to stick the needle into the egg and basically force an embryo to be made. We were going to do a split. We would do half of this way and half of this way, just because our doctor thinks that sometimes this can do more damage than good. Once they mix, either way, whichever way it is, you will get a 1-cell, I don't know what they're called. Anyways. And then hopefully, you have some magic happen. That's all of this around here, magic. And then it turns into a 2-cell, and then a 4-cell, and then an 8-cell, and then a 16-cell. And like I said, I know it's not the best because these should all be like all over the place, but anyway. And then you get a blastocyst. And a blastocyst is basically the earliest stage of an embryo. It has to reach this stage before it's considered able to be biopsied or frozen. And basically you can see here I have a baby. That little clump of cells becomes the baby, and the outer ring here becomes the placenta. And so when they biopsy it, they take some of these cells right here to see if they contain the normal amount of chromosomes. Okay? So after all of that happens, or in the meantime, you go home from the egg retrieval, rest and relax, basically like detox all the hormones that you've been shooting into your body, and you just take that month and really, recover from IVF, because IVF is tough. Your body does not feel great with all this stuff happening. And in the meantime, they take the biopsied placenta and see if the chromosomes are normal. They freeze the embryo. Come a month later, if everything is normal and you get normal embryos, they'll start prepping the uterus to have a baby. Basically, more shots. Yay. I've heard from the nurse at the clinic that those needles are way worse. So looking forward to that. So you take progesterone, more hormones, but basically this is to build up the lining of the uterus so it's nice and thick and comfy, and the embryo wants to implant in it. You do a couple, I think it's 14 days of prep doing that, and then you dethaw the embryo, and then you go in for the transfer. That's a big deal if you make it to transfer, because they don't always survive from all these steps. Go in for your transfer, they transfer it, and hopefully the baby implants into the uterus. And then you wait 14 days, take a pregnancy test, and if it's positive, you call your doctor and say, hey, I got a positive pregnancy test. They have you come in for a blood work, and if that's positive, then you're pregnant and it's time for a baby. Just that easy, right? So I just wanted to go over all of that. I know it's a lot, and I don't explain it in my videos, so I didn't want to be too technical, but I also wanted you guys to understand what I talk about. So stay tuned. All right, talk to you guys later. Bye.